Awesome, guys. Hey, welcome to the Journey to Win. We have Nicholas here. Is it Bayerle? Is that how you say your last name?
Dude, you crushed it barely. That's exactly right.
I was making sure I was going to mess that up. He's this guy's impressive. I've been following him now, I think, for right around 5 or 6 years. We lived out in San Diego together. We have a few really good mutual friends, and he runs the King's Brotherhood movement. He's got a podcast called It's God's Business. He's an author. He's a father. He's a leader. And he's just crushing life. And you guys know Journey to Win is all about winning in every area of your life. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And he's going to go through his journey to win and tell you guys some ups and downs. But I'm really excited to get to it. How's it going, Nick?
Bro, first off, thank you. I remember being 60 pounds overweight, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But the big thing is that one thing really changed my life for the negative in just one moment. Just like one simple thing was like that straw that broke the camel's back, and I just went into complete seclusion, depression, etc. And I realized that if it can happen for the negative, that can also happen for the positive. That did end up happening for me, which is why I'm here. Yet I'm also thinking for the people listening, like we could create those types of moments that I would call a defining moment here. And also that's only come from me standing on the shoulders of giants, from mentors, but also military. I live in a free country that allows me to go out there and slay it in what I'm good at. So I also want to recognize that as well, is that I'm just trying to like do well with what I've been given and the freedom that I've been given and do my part, right? It's like I didn't fight for the freedom, but I'm trying to use it to do something purposeful, which I know you did. So I appreciate that.
That's awesome, man. You're out there making a difference. So one thing that we start off with on this podcast, the first question I love to ask is, what is winning to Nicholas?
Man, that's a really good question. And there's a lot of things that I would have normally said throughout my life. Yet one of the biggest things for me, I had a big encounter with God when I was 18 years old. And the way that I've built my life is really focusing on the bigger purpose. I look at King Solomon, for instance. When people hear about him, this guy's like the wisest man that ever lived, super, super wealthy. And what he focused on when he gained wisdom and then all the wealth that everyone looks at is he really focused on what was God's will on the earth and how could he be equipped to carry that out purposefully. And so winning for me has really changed over the years from just a metric that the world would set as a standard. And I really started, instead of looking at the world standard of what winning looked like, I was really trying to figure out what is God's standard of what winning looks like, because I ultimately know that that's going to be fulfilling. So winning to me would be looking at God's design for my life and fulfilling that purpose and destiny to carry out his will and mission on the earth through my life, because I know that's where I'm going to have fulfillment, but also that's where I'm going to have success as well for my family.
So what does that look like for you? I mean, obviously you launched, your podcast, you got your movement. Maybe talk a little bit about that and tell me, go a little bit more detail on how you're going to fulfill that mission.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. So what I noticed throughout my life, and we could really go through some big pitfalls. I found that sometimes inspiration's found in the accomplishment. Awesome. Yet the reality and the connection of how to go after that accomplishment is through the pitfalls. And so I'm happy to share any pitfalls, because the things I'll share now are probably sound really, really cool, but they were really difficult things that I struggled with. That would be kind of like your past doesn't define you, but it refines you. I'd say that's kind of what I've gone through as being a man that's a Christian businessman that's also married. I got married at 20. My wife was 18. So at the time I was completely broke, no work. And I realized at that point that, man, the first thing I'd ever done in my life was lose weight, right? I met a kid. This is how simple transformation can be created. Is I go to school one day, I'm 60 pounds overweight. I've been made fun of. I gained weight. I started wearing the same sweatshirt every single day. So I had a sweatshirt that I wore so often that it was faded by the sun. If you lifted up the hoodie, completely faded. Now, East County, San Diego is not the coolest place in the world. Not meaning cool like hip, but cool like temperature. It can get like 100, 110 degrees. People think all of San Diego is the same. Nah, Coronado is nice. But once we get inland 30 minutes, it can get super hot. I wore that same sweatshirt every day. So I'm super insecure at this point. I lack a lot of self-confidence and really it's self-esteem. And when I look at it, self-consciousness, if you look at it by definition, if you just break those two words up, it really gave me the purpose of why I should become confident, because self-consciousness means actually just to be conscious of yourself only. And I realized that if I stayed in this current state that I was in, I was only going to be focused on myself and never going to be focused on others. And think of how that really works. If you're embarrassed by your hair, your weight, your capabilities, and all these things. Every single environment you're going into, you're just thinking, do my pants fit right? Is my love handles hanging over the sides? Are my man boobs showing? You know, I got these big pepperoni nipples now. So like, are these being able to see? And all you're thinking about is yourself. You're not able to serve others. And that really hit me big. First off, in the weight side, I ended up losing 60 pounds in 6 months because of one kid that came to school with a meal plan. And I asked him, why are you eating these foods? And he said, it's because my trainer put me on a certain meal plan so I could weigh in at the correct weight. And he was a boxer. So he said, it's for high performance. That clicked for me. I was like, man, it's not just for losing weight. It's also for performance. So this guy, leading by example, did one small thing and it shifted my life forever. I lost 60 pounds in 6 months. I ultimately saw right away that I was never going to be fulfilled through achievement. I knew I got the 60 pounds down and nothing really felt different. I was walking at school actually, and I walked past someone that I had played music with, guitar, for 3 years. Played it for 3 years, took guitar class for 3 years. I was in my senior year, so my fourth year. Wasn't taking it that year, but I walked back and forth with the person I literally wrote music with for 3 years straight. I was still self-conscious. I was still lacking confidence. I was still always thinking about myself, right? Conscious of self only. This person kept walking past me. Sometimes I'd be like, maybe I shouldn't talk to her because maybe I should play hard to get. Oh, maybe I shouldn't look at her this time because I don't want her to think that I like her. So I did all these things every single day till one day I'm actually in maybe my second church service. So at this point, I just had my life transformed by God, gave my life to Christ, and I'm like, I'm all in. And I get this phone call that very friend had hung herself. And I remember it just like crushing me because at this point, like I just changed my whole life, right? But at the same time, I realized that I walked past a person every single day and was so fixated on myself that I never even thought to wonder what she was even going through. I actually held my first, what would be maybe considered event with a group of people. But at the church, we actually got everyone together that had been impacted by her life, got them all together to celebrate her life. On word of mouth, through a few flyers, over 400 people showed up. This tripped me out. Regular girl that went to my school, and something hit me in that moment, and I realized that she had lived a life by like 17, 18 years old that had impacted 400 people enough that they would show up via word of mouth. But 400 people had not taken enough interest or even thought to wonder what was going on in her life enough to impact her life enough to even just call someone, think of someone, think that she had someone to reach out to when she was like, it's tough, man. Like if you think about when you jump off a cliff, I'm sure you look like someone that's like jumped off of like cliffs into water and all that fun stuff. You know, when you get the adrenaline rush, like when you're going to jump off a 60-foot cliff, my friends and I just did it at Lake Powell this last year. We're going to jump 60 foot. Like you're like, okay, like you got to fight your brain and you got to jump. That's not the easiest thing to do. I'm assuming that killing yourself probably isn't that easy either. And that takes that commitment. And you have to think of like the risk or reason to live. And she couldn't think of anything powerful enough. And when you talk about my book, Modern Day Businessman, I really break down how that inspired me to start a business and really put myself out there, and also ask for God to lead me to take off that self-consciousness and be like, how can I be aware of what's going on in my environment? And in my book, I actually talk about how 6 months later, I actually found a guy on the side of the road, and the story's insane, but you'll have to read it. I just don't want to, I could literally talk the whole podcast on that. Yet that was so impactful for me, man. So when I look at my life, I was a guy who was 60 pounds overweight, struggled in his health, didn't have a girlfriend throughout that entire time, failed in high school because I was so insecure. I didn't care about my future. All I wanted to be growing up was a professional athlete, and my pasty, chubby ass was never going to be the one to do it. And ultimately ended up losing the weight, finding my purpose in Christ, going to ministry school, finding my wife, and being completely broke. And I realized I had to provide for my wife. And I saw these dimensions of faith, relationships, health, and business were all the core things that as a man, I was like looking at business and saying, what do I need to do to be successful? Lead generation, to make money, lead generation, lead follow-up and nurture sequences, conversion, how do you sell people, phone, page, etc. Deliverable, what's the product? And ascension, retention, resell, upsell. Those are necessary. You need to retain customers. You need to upsell customers. You need to resell customers. That is required to make money. If you take one of those areas out, if you take out lead gen, nothing works. If you take out ascension, you're just not making anywhere near the amount of money that you could, or helping the amount of people that you could, or marketing the way that you could. I said, as a man, if I'm going to stop juggling this stuff, health, I got healthy, hired a trainer, found my wife, got married, and I'm broke. I'm like, I need to know how to make money. And then I'm not working out because something had to give all the time. I'm like, when can I stop feeling like the person that's picking up all this stuff? And the more I pick up, all of it's falling on the ground. It feels like I keep running from one thing to the next. And that's when it really came with developing the 4-dimensional businessman, figuring out these are the lowest common denominators. What can we outsource as a man? I can outsource my marketing department. I should probably look at it, but I can outsource marketing and sales. I mean, you had talked about many people are in direct sales. You've outsourced product creation. You got these scientists and doctors that are literally creating a product for you. You can outsource that. But as a man, you can't outsource your relationship with God, your own faith building that. You cannot outsource your relationship with your wife. I always say to guys, I'm like, well, you could have someone else have sex with your wife for you, but probably shouldn't do that. Can't outsource it. So you should probably get good at it. Right? It's like, okay, what about with your kids? What about your health? Yeah, you can hire a trainer and you get a meal plan, but nobody's going to sit there and make sure that you're not stuffing Reese's down your throat in the middle of the night and leaving wrappers in your bed that when you go to change the sheets, they all go flying everywhere because you're too lazy to walk them downstairs or throw them in the trash because you're eating it late at night. No one can stop that besides you. You get the plan, but you're the one that has to execute on it. And then with your money, how do you create the vision? What's the vision that God's put in your heart? No one can create that for you. How do you make money? How do you manage money? And how do you grow money? These are areas that we are going to want to have our hands in as a man. That I said, okay, these are the core areas as a man that if we can't outsource it, this is what I'm going to focus on. And that's what I did with King's Brotherhood, getting together the most powerful group of Christian businessmen on the planet, taking the areas where I had failed, figured out the ways that I had success in, losing 60 pounds, being married 11 years, having my son. And again, I'm not even the biggest spokesperson. I bring in experts. This just has been mine, producing millions and millions of dollars online, offline, phone sales, speaking from stage, etc., and saying, how do we implement this for everyone else and build a culture where this is celebrated, right? Gangs, you're celebrated from stealing. You're celebrated for killing, right? You get your little teardrop or you get your promotion. These kids, they want acceptance. So they're born next to a place where there's a gang. They're like, oh, how do I get love and acceptance? Well, through doing these things. Well, in my community, you get it through giving. You get it through giving, expecting nothing in return, contributing through your times, your efforts, your money. So people are literally wanting attention and they're doing good things for it. They're spending time with their wife. They're losing weight. They're becoming healthy. We've lost tens of thousands of pounds. It's like, this is where the concept was created through my own failure. And that's what we're doing now and really highlighting it through God's business. Like the show has been so cool, man. Like I totally thought as a Christian business owner that Christians were low performers. I could never learn from them in business. They were all just the old guys that had never ran ads on Facebook before. So they had no clue even how to use social. And I started recognizing that a lot of these huge brands out here were actually inspired by God, hearing his voice, following scripture. And this was kind of if you peel it back, these were the decisions they were making. And I'm highlighting that on the show. So for the people that are into that, that's really the focus there, is to figure out how do you partner with God in business. I used to think it was impossible or maybe just different. But here's the last thing I'll say on this. I'm so sorry for this, but man, this is something that was really big to me today and just hit me today. So I've never said this before. If you feel like money and work takes you away from your relationship with God, so meaning I got to go to work so I can't worship, I can't pray, I can't read the Bible, etc. I got to go to work, I have to work to provide, or money's going to separate you from God, then you will always subconsciously destroy that area of your life because you always have hatred towards it since it's taking you away from the very thing that you would say is the most important in your life. And the goal is to integrate it and to co-labor with God on the vision and mission that you're working on. That doesn't mean you need to change your vision and mission. It just means how do we give excellence to it and give him glory through the things that we're doing as well. So that's also my focus.
No, I love it, man. I mean, I coach a lot of people, and a lot of people say I don't have time for this or that. And the reality is that they just get into mental momentum in their business, or they get into analysis paralysis. They want to sit there and scroll and think about things forever and never really get moving. And then, you know, for you, like sitting there talking about that with their relationship with God, I mean, they have time. They just got to actually make the time to, instead of scrolling through social media, instead of watching TV, instead of, you know, going out to the club or whatever, like they can focus 10, 15, 20 minutes here and there to make
what a practical step. Like what you're saying right now is exactly right. Like for the first few years, 2015 and 16, I coached about 600 guys. I rarely do coaching now. I don't do anything for less than 100K, and it's not something I want to focus on. At the time, it was everything. I got to really talk to every single guy and figure out, why is this not working for you? Because you know how it is. It's like once you build a business or you lose weight, you're fit like you. Someone comes to you and they're like, oh, I can't lose weight. You're like, all right, well, show me where you're putting your time, your energy, your mouth. Like, come on. Like if you jumped into their body, you'd be confident that you could lose weight because you know how to do it. You don't have the mental pitfalls. So I was very much so like, man, I lost 60 pounds. I know what it's like to be overweight. Let me jump in. So I'd really focus on, what are your priorities? You had talked about everyone has time, but they're scrolling through their phone. I really created this thing called the King's Ritual, which everyone can write down as something practical. This is something I have my guys go through. Every single day it started out with gratefulness. Seems so lame. I've had times, though, where I feel like, and I do 3. If you're feeling bad, you do 20 things you're grateful for. 3 is every single day. I've had times where I feel like there's an elephant on my chest. I have nothing to look forward to. I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. Just really down. And when I start focusing on that 20 gratefulness, I just realized that it really did help. Seems super dumb, very illogical. And when you're in momentum, you don't really want to do it because you're like, I'm fine. No, just 3 is great, man. Like, and for me, it's usually bigger things, right? I'm thankful for God's wisdom. I'm grateful for salvation and him being involved in my life. I'm thankful for the gifts that he's given me. And other times I'm actually grateful for the coffee that I have today because it's freaking good. So just figure out those things. So it starts off with gratefulness. Next one was intention. What's your core overall theme for the day? So like a focus or intention that you have. That always shifts for me. Really, really helps because it's a lens that I look through on my day. The next phase after that, if I do it for the week, I'll have faith, health, relationship, and then business. What are my core goals? What are the core things that I want to do? Some of them are repetitive, meaning like I always drink water. I always eat my diet plan. I always go to the gym. Those are things that I always do. So I'll have them repetitive, but I'll write them out again. And that way that my brain doesn't know the difference between checking those things off the list and making a sale. So if you put emphasis on those core things that you can control again, you can start getting your power back. Because if your core goal is, I want to sell this much or I want to make this much money, and those are your only things that you're writing down on paper, you start getting numb to all the things that do matter, like your health and your family and your relationship and date night with your wife and writing her a letter. So it's getting those things back. Notice that I even say, like, I spend the majority of my time in the day working. I don't spend more time with my wife or more time with my son than working. But it's not my highest priority. Priority does not mean time. It just means when push comes to shove, what comes first? What's the biggest focus? And so when I'm able to go in there and go, okay, faith is number 1 to me. What am I going to do? Hey, I'm going to read my Bible. I'm going to pray. I'm going to worship. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to do these things. Great. These are metrics that I can track. These are things that I can do. So notice that I go from goal, right? Faith goal is very difficult, but health, it's very easy. A certain weight, a certain strength, business, a metric, a KPI, growth. Very, very good. The problem is if you're only focused on the goal, then you're never happy until you hit it. So it's taking the goal and breaking it down into actual action items that are KPIs that you could track every day. So if it's read the Bible in a year, you'll never be happy till you read it in a year. But if you break down the 4 chapters you need to read every day, you now can just hit the goal of 4 chapters a day, and now you feel accomplished. You haven't finished the Bible, but you hit your 4 chapters, so you're able to have these micro goals that are completely controllable. Notice that as well. They're not make 50 grand. No, what's required to make 50 grand? Well, if you're in direct sales, it's probably about 110 people on a list. 110 people on a list, follow up with them. If you have 110 people written down, you follow up with them for a month, you'll probably do 50 grand in sales. So then your goal now is just to manage the 110. It's not 50 grand in sales. You reevaluate if you don't hit your goal and you figure out, how do I change the process? But you don't keep focusing on just the goal. We have to focus on the process or else we're always going to be upset. So I do that in faith. I do it in health. Okay, this is my goal in health. Here's my process. Hire a coach. Hire someone if you don't have the process. Man, there's nothing like having outside information so that you can be confident in your programming. So I have a business coach. Here's what we're planning on. Here's our goal. Here's what we're planning on doing. Is there anything that you would shift to help us hit this? No, that's perfect. Great. I have confidence to just be hitting those actions so I know when to work and when to rest. I do it with each area. And then as a daily ritual, not just the weekly, I then am just checking that every day. So every day I'm writing down, okay, what's my faith stuff? What's my health stuff? What's my relationship stuff that I'm doing today? And what's the business stuff? I also track 3 core things that we're doing in our company that month. And that way that if I have a calendar like this today is on my calendar. If I wanted to do all these other projects today, I also have to be realistic that I have things on my calendar that I'm obligated to do, I'm committed to. So I want to make sure that I am reviewing my calendar, plugging in where my top core priorities are, and starting to plug those things in and making sure that they're aligning with the actual goal of the company. So they're not just busy work. What I found is exactly what you said. Every guy is just usually, they're just allowing lower priorities to take spot on the top priorities. So if I wake up this morning, I'm drinking my gallon of water. I already went to the gym today. I'm going to do a 45-minute walk after this outside. That's one of my goals today for my health. I plugged it into my calendar, but I'm able to check those off the box and feel like a boss every day. And then at the end of the month, I'm more fit. I'm not sitting there stressing about being fit. And I'm not just focused on one thing at a time. Because I've been there where all I'm focused on is business and you'll get it, but everything else will fall apart. And then you'll feel like you have to go chase now your health and then your business goes down. It's like, wow, how about we just create a little bit of routine, better trackable metrics, and make the top priorities the actual priorities and create boundaries. There's a great book out there called Boundaries as well. It gives you 10 different tips. Maybe you could read a blog on it even. 10 different tips to know you need to set a boundary. And it'll rattle through 10 different things. And usually there's about 2 to 4 every time I go through it that I need to do. Oh man, I'm feeling stressed here. People are taking advantage of me. Bro, people that are saying that's called having a lack of a boundary. You're going to the gym and you're always on your phone. Lack of boundary. You want to go to the gym, but you never have time. Lack of boundary. Let's create the boundaries. Let's create the goals. Let's reprioritize the life and then get you a great plan, right? The plan is also important, but the plan doesn't work unless you work the plan.
Yeah, 100%, man. It makes sense. And I got some questions I want to get to, but before I do that, you're talking about these rituals, and my mentor has always told me your rituals will make you rich, right? And so you got to get super disciplined with them. However, everybody falls off the track. I mean, nobody's perfect. Nobody shows up every single day. You just have to stack more wins and losses, right? But what do you do when you wake up and you don't have, the exact day that you're thinking that you're going to have because problems arise, something happens with the kids or whatever, like talk about that. Falling off track.
Yeah. So I have a few different ones. I had one most recently, which was, and even right now, I just came back from a trip and I'm out of my routine. So I very much so I'm like, hey, I have to catch this. And the good thing about patterns, like if you're not 20 years old, if you're 20 years old, you may just be going through your first pattern, which is like, what's the common things that you struggle with as a man or as a person? I'm just speaking to man because that's what I am. Yet as a person, what do you commonly struggle with? The good thing about patterns is as you get older, you get to see your patterns more often. You're like, man, you know what? I've really struggled with this. An easy one for me is like when I would get sick back in the day. Don't believe you ever have to get sick. Not something I believe in, but I've had experiences with it. And there was times where I would try to work through all my work stuff, even when I wasn't feeling good. Usually I would end up getting really burnt out, really hard on myself, really self-critical because I wasn't getting the things done that I wanted to. And then 2-3 days later, I'd start feeling good again. And then I'd all of a sudden be productive. And after a few of those patterns, I was like, you know what? When I don't feel good, how about I just understand that sometimes that happens? And I'm just going to be consistent with what I can be consistent with so that I don't mentally mess myself up. And then in 3 days, I know that I usually recover and bounce back and I'm happier afterwards. So don't be so freaking self-critical on myself when I'm really not feeling good. So that would be considered what would be a pattern. There's a few different things mindset wise that I've done. So I remember 2018, I held an event. This one popped up for me when you were even talking about just like winning. like, man, this is what winning looks like more than my good event. So I held an event. At this point, each event that I would run, I think this one I was about 120K in debt. So 120K in debt to run the event, just be like an investment because I knew the event would pay off. At the event, I was going to pitch our products and services from stage, and then that would recuperate all the costs of the event and then have excess revenue and profit on the other side. So I planned this whole event, all the months leading up to it, 120K in debt, and I'm like, okay, everything's going to be great. At these events, I'm very upfront. I just pitched the very first talk. Hey guys, this is the only program you can buy. If you want to apply for it, go apply for it, meet with someone. Totally cool. And again, it's a great sales presentation and pitch, but ultimately I let them know right off the bat. So there's no other pitching going on at the event, which by the way, also is a pitch. So the whole thing is very awesome. But at this point, I get there, and what we didn't test is that we had the whole AV team set up, did all of the practice the day before. But what we didn't know is that on the other side of the wall was actually the entire kitchen that came in the next morning. So because of that, there was too much load on all the breakers and circuits. So during my first talk, during my opening talk, the opening part, all the power goes out. So I have no clue when the power is going to come back on. So imagine, like, I'm supposed to pitch this talk. I don't know if I'm supposed to walk off stage. So I just keep rolling with it. Power comes back on. I get partway through my presentation. Power goes off. I start taking Q&A. How awkward is this for a sales presentation? Finally, we get to the point where I move to the pitch. I'm supposed to talk for an hour and a half. I'm now like 2.5 hours in. I got all these other speakers that are waiting to go. I have lunch that's about to break, and you don't pitch before lunch because everyone will just leave to lunch. And I'm freaking out, right? This is 2018. I'm still like a little bit new, only a couple years into this, like doing my own, like, meaning pitching from stage. And I'm going through the pitch, and the power goes out. And I'm like sweating, super like sad, down. Think about it. Think about just real quick, like think about swiping your credit cards. I remember seeing 119,000 on the credit card, months to prepare. So opportunity costs, and it's not like I was getting paid for it, right? I was just working the business. Like I was doing my thing. Show up to the event, and this happens. I got one application. I was expecting 30 to 50. And I remember going to bed that night. This is exactly what I said. Sorry, but I said, I would rather go into the bathroom, take a dump on the floor, puke on it, and roll around in it than what I feel right now. Like I was trying to think of like, what would be worse? Just like, I was like, I don't know what would really feel worse. I'm going to bed like everyone's enjoying themselves besides me because I'm feeling all this pressure. And so in that moment, and I think this is probably one of the most important parts and was like a deciding factor that really inspired myself. And I would like to touch on that later, but the inspiring yourself piece, I said to myself, I could easily go and complain to the hotel. This is their fault. So I'm thinking about like, what are the ways through this? Well, I go tomorrow, I can wake up, I can go complain to the hotel. I could get a bunch of my money back, save myself, etc., find my way out of it, and live to fight another day. And I knew other mentors that would have done the same thing and had already done that. I also thought of, what if I went out the next day and just made it happen? I creatively thought of this new idea where I had testimonials of my past clients come on stage, honored them, gave them trophies, and then basically did another pitch where I just said, guys, if you want lives like them, this is what they went through. If you want to be a part of this, the application's back there. We got 50 apps. Closed over 450K. And I was like, at 450,000 US. And I just sat there like, would this have happened if I would have just copped out and taken the easy way out of just complaining? I could have complained my way out, and I would be on the show talking about that if you have any problem, if even the movie theater is too cold, if you go out and you complain to the front desk, they'll give you free movie tickets, which is true. If you go to a movie theater and it's too cold, you go out there and complain. If you hold an event, you can complain your way to save money, or you can figure out what's the path going forward. And so that was a day where, man, I felt absolutely horrible. Like, everything was sucked out of me. Like, why is this happening to me? And like my next year, I got a call before my next event the next year, 2019, and my father was basically on life support the day before the event. Like, I've been through plenty of things when it comes to running our company and running our business, and each one of those were so freaking difficult. But it's like, do you want to figure a way out or a way through? I love how the Bible says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Like, I love that it says that, because it's like, not, though I run away from the valley of the shadow of death, though I sit in the valley of the shadow, though I complain here in the valley, in the shadow. No, it's always like, though I walk through. And I think that's such a big piece, is like, how committed will you be to that? And I think that's really what spoke to me the most from one of my mentors that you said may even been your SEAL instructor, Yost Jansen. Man, I was the kid, just so people know, when I tried to wrestle in high school, I was the kid that didn't ever do the workouts and just said that I did. That when the coach was looking, I looked like I was working very hard. The coaches would have said I was the best wrestler, always challenged people. But as soon as they weren't looking, I faked it 100%. I was not committed to myself. I was only committed to looking good in front of others, because I just wanted the approval of who represented my father, because that's all I ever wanted in life. And so when I started working out with this guy, Yost, he started telling me that the definition of commitment is doing what you said you were going to do long after the feeling that you said it in has passed, which is totally worth hitting that back 10 seconds button to hear again. Commitment is doing what you said you were going to do long after the feeling that you said it in has passed. That you don't need commitment when you really feel like it. I remember so many examples of this, man, like where he would be working out and I saw him get injured one time, and I thought, well, I've seen the Olympic things, like where someone gets injured, they pull a hammy and someone goes and grabs them and runs them through the Olympic like thing. And he fell, and I was like, let me help him up and do whatever. And he was like, why are you helping? Stop. And he just finished the workout. And then another time we were sitting there, we created a workout, which I think health is such a great foundation of these principles. And we created this workout. We get like halfway through it and we're an hour in. And I'm like, bro, this is the best workout I've ever done. Fist bump. Like, that was great. We obviously kind of messed up this whole programming. 2 hours is a little long for a workout, but like, and he's like, no, like, you don't understand. Let's finish this workout and then we can decide to never do it again. But like, don't decide you're going to do it and come over here if you're going to just quit halfway through. And it really, these are the foundations of things that through a mentor and through someone else's guidance that really built everything inside of me. Right now, I haven't told anyone, but like, I'm doing 75 hard, and I had done already 75 hard phase one. If people Google, it's basically 2 workouts a day. One of them's outdoors, 45 minutes each workout, no cheat meals, no alcohol, a gallon of water every day, 10 pages reading every single day. And so throughout that whole process, like, I had done it when I felt like it. Didn't really take commitment. I totally felt like doing it. I was like, boom, I'll do it. Phase one, in momentum. First you create a habit, then your habit creates you. Totally fine. But then I got taken out of the game. Like, I didn't feel like doing it anymore. All the excitement around it was gone. And one day again, I was just like, I need to prove to myself that I'm willing to be, the commitment that you make to yourself is so much more important than the commitment you make to others. And this is something I learned from Yost as well. Is like, he says, back in the day, if you said, I'm going to meet you in this location at this time, usually you would show up just because you didn't want to let someone else down. But how often do people say, I want to go to the gym at this time, and they're willing to let themselves down every single day? And he told me that the commitment that you make to yourself is far more important than the commitment you make to others, because when you don't keep the commitment with yourself, you start saying things that you're going to do, and your subconscious mind knows that you're full of crap because you've said it so many times before and haven't done it. And it takes us starting with those very small things. So I'm hypercritical on that. I literally just started doing this again. And I'm like, I'm going to do this because I really don't feel like it, but I want to show myself that I keep my commitments to myself in an area that I can control. What's crazy is I fell asleep without reading 10 pages like 2 days ago. I was so freaking pissed and mad at the fact that I had ruined all of that I had just done by missing one thing. But I was so happy that I was willing to just take that back up and go after it again. And so in 2021, September, I was in some of the worst shape after a bad injury. And that's when I just woke up again. I had a friend of mine, he actually saw a picture of mine and was like, yo, bro, what's up with the dad bod? Basically called me fat. And I was so mad. I created a piece of content on my Instagram about this specifically. And I was so mad at that he would say that. Like, how rude. Like, even my wife was like, how rude is this? But I literally went to the gym that day pissed and started 75 hard that day and worked out 110 days in a row, twice a day, and did cold showers and cold plunge and no warm water for 143 days. Because I was so frustrated at who I had become, because who I had become was no longer representing who I actually was. So I truly believe that was just 2021. And now I'm going through it again. There's times, one thing that's very difficult to live with is like, there's going to be times when you were better than where you're at right now. And I'm sure for you, like, you're a Navy SEAL, like, there's going to be times where you were able to focus on fitness more than now, and who you were was more fit. So that's a very frustrating thing to deal with, is that, if you're 50 or 70, like, you probably won't be lifting quite as much as you did when you were 30. And that's very difficult, but it's like, what does excellence look like to you? So I go through it all the time. I get super overwhelmed, and I just go back to, how can I just go back to the ritual, figure out some key goals that I have in each area, be realistic with it. Do I really want this goal? Why do I want this goal? What are the ways that I can actually hit that goal? And what are the trackable things that I could do today that I could celebrate? I can go to the gym twice today. Like, again, it doesn't have to be twice. You can walk twice. It's like, but I can track that and be happy with what I did that day. And during that time, man, of going through that, being super out of shape, just feeling like a total loser, I'd lost myself. Like, when you're out of shape or not running your business well, not showing up, doing your content well, not doing sales calls, getting back on track feels like it's literally Mount Everest. It's so wild how your brain completely messes with you. Like, when you're out of shape, you couldn't even imagine being in shape. You're like, go for a run and you're like, I'm dead. I'm never going to be able to be in shape again. What's so funny is if you just commit to the process for a day or a week, by the end of the week, you already feel like you're a badass, because who you've become in the process, even though your body hasn't caught up. And so don't fall into the lie, and just take my word for it. Like, there's 3 questions that I asked myself each day during this process when I was super out of shape, had a really bad neck injury, couldn't even lift 10 pounds over my head for like a long time, like a year and a half. And I just decided, what can I do? I can walk. Like, why am I being so lazy? Why do I need perfection to take action? I wanted to be in perfect health before I ever lifted a weight again. Because I'm like, if I can't do that, then what's the point? Right? And how many people say this with business? I'll commit to that program when I can give it 100%. I'm like, how about you just get in the program and give it what you got, because it's better than 0. So I asked myself these 3 questions. Am I inspired by myself? And how can I inspire myself today? So many people want to be inspired by David Goggins and all these other people, or even Brandon. Like, people want to be inspired by you and look at your content and be inspired. And I was like, are you inspired by yourself? Yes or no? And what can you do today to inspire yourself? Second one was respect yourself. Do you respect yourself? And what can you do today to respect yourself? So for me, during this time, I was like, respecting myself and mean getting my workouts in, not allowing work and everyone else's agenda to get in my way. The inspiring myself usually would come in the workout. Be like, I want to inspire myself. What's something I would do? So I actually got COVID during 75 hard. I was jacked, bro. So jacked, like just so achy, so terrible. And I hit 2 bike rides every day. I was like, I can't go uphill, but I can cycle for 45 minutes twice. And I remember crying. I was all emotional because I was like, I had COVID, felt terrible. I'm cycling. Also, I was inspired. I was like, what a badass. Like, I'm freaking cycling with COVID. And went through all of that because the commitment was more important, right? I get that it's not healthy to cycle with COVID, but what's even more unhealthy is destroying your mindset by not keeping your commitment. Far more unhealthy than that. So the third thing was, how can I be a little bit afraid of myself? And how can I today do something that makes me a little bit afraid of myself? And this was the feeling of, man, if you walked into a room, would people be like, I don't want to mess with that guy? And that usually would come with my output. So there was a hill next to my house. I would mountain bike up this hill. I remember the first time I got to the bottom of it, I was out of shape. I looked at it and I called my wife and said, can you come pick me up? I was like, I can't make it home. There's no way I'm making it up this hill. And then I call her, she's coming to pick me up, and I just start. And I realize I'm like halfway up the hill. By the time I get to the top of the hill, I'm still like 7 miles from home. I get to the top of the hill. I go, honey, just turn back. I was like on cloud nine. I couldn't believe it that I made it to the top of this hill. So every time I hit that hill, I was just like, again, what can I do to be a little bit afraid of myself? Man, I used to scream going up that hill. I was just like, today's going to be the day. I remember going from first gear to second gear, just being like, man, this is so scary to me to hit second gear because, man, I'm so afraid to fail. Like, I'm so afraid that if I click second gear and I can't make it up this, like, the reality of what that means to my life, like, how big of a failure am I if I can't do this? But I remember making it in second gear and just being like, man, this is the new standard for my life. And like, how much does this relate to everything else? As I set these watermarks and these benchmarks in my life, in business with that event, in business with my father, and realizing that none of these things took me out. So every single other thing that I'm going through now, I'm like, I look back and go, shoot, bro, like I had all the power go out. Like, as long as that doesn't happen, man, my dad was on life support like the day before my event. That couldn't have come at a worse time. And we crushed it, you know? And it's like, and what's crazy is like all that working out actually basically healed my neck, which is crazy, the strengthening of it. So that was just recently, and I'm going through it again right now. So like, I'm not anywhere near as good a shape. I got a shoulder injury. I think I even told you 9 months of lifting like 50%. But the cool thing is that before I took a year and a half off, then I started doing the cycling and all this that I'm telling you about. Well, I hurt my shoulder for 9 months. I still did my routine just at 50%. And I was so pumped that I actually showed up and just did the reps because I felt like I was still doing it. Whereas before I would have been all about perfection.
Yeah, 100%, man. Most people they don't even do the simple thing in life, and that's just show up. So good job, dude. I got to ask you though. So as you're going through this right now, who are your mentors? Who like who do you look up to during the times of challenging, like when you're going through challenges like you are right now? And then what would you say to the person, because obviously you mentor a lot of people and you have a program and a platform for guys to be able to plug into, but maybe they're just like, you know what, I just don't have the money to be able to get involved in something to where I can get mentorship, because you were broke at one point in your life and you did find the right mentors. You invested into yourself, and that's why you are the man that you are today. So maybe talk about a little bit about both of those.
Yeah, I'll talk about both. So there's typically 3 categories that I found have worked for me, and all of them are equally important, because without them, like, there's no way for this to work. So the first one is like advisor flywheel. And this is what I always ask for. This is why a lot of the guys work with us. We give them the advisor flywheel, but for me, I created it. An advisor flywheel is the fact that, like, my Navy SEAL mentor didn't know how to market on Facebook. So like, if I just had my Navy SEAL mentor is amazing. Like, he taught me all these personal things, right? That I like really changed who I am and how I approach each other area of my life. Yet, yeah, he definitely wasn't marketing on Facebook, probably made fun of me for posting on Facebook and all that stuff, right? And so advisor flywheel is really like people that are further ahead of you in these areas that you're really looking to grow. And so that's number one. I'll keep it as short as that. And I'll talk about how I did that. The second one is like what I would call brotherhood. This would be like your pack. And this is really like if you a pride of a lion, this would be like people that are running the same speed as you towards similar like-minded things. So I want to surround myself with brothers, maybe sisters, with people that are running similar pace, that are like one accord. Often in the Bible, it talks about, like in Acts chapter 2, even in Proverbs, we'll talk a lot about receiving counsel from people that are ahead of you. Having multiple advisors is very smart. These are all really smart things, and I can pull them all up for you. I have them all saved. The second one is all around the people that you run with. If you look at Acts, a lot of the people came together in one accord. So this is a very popular thing. And so how do you come together with people that are in one accord? This is like in a spirit of harmony, coming together with like-mindedness in the vision, what they're trying to create. I remember there being a stat back in the day that was more logical for it that said, whether it's your finances, your fitness, your relationship, it's very common for someone who's around people that are getting divorced to also get divorced. It's crazy. Obviously, people that are not fit, hanging out with tons of people that are not fit, the chances of you being not fit is super high. And plus or minus 10% of income is usually, unless you just change your friend group, you're going to be plus or minus 10%. And so an automatic way to shift all those areas is to change your association. I chased this hard. I remember when I thought people that made 10K a month, first place was network marketing. I thought they were gods. I was like, bro, this is insane. Do I get an autograph? I remember years later building my own company, and I met a guy who'd made $10,000 before he ate breakfast. And I was like, I'm in. So I tried like doing it 3 days in a row. I didn't have breakfast, and I was like, all right, I need to change the goal. But I remember getting to like $3,000 a day. And I'm like, I look back and I was like, I was making about $3,000 a month when I thought $10,000 a month was like a god. I was like, man, you guys are insane. I was making $3K a day when this guy was making $10K before breakfast. So I was still technically percentage-wise the same loser that I always was. And I was just like, what if I could just continue to be a loser, but just changing the game that I was playing, the level, right? Like you could be a pro basketball player, but if you want to play amateur, you'll probably be pretty good. I was just like, what if I got myself playing with pros and I'm the worst, but I'm better than I've ever been before because of the people that I'm playing with? I just started associating. And the Bible also talks a lot about that he who refreshes will also be refreshed. And this is the area that you can pour into people. When you teach something, the benefit of it is that you learn it twice. So you have to learn it for yourself, but then also teaching, you have to communicate it to all different types of people. And so you actually get a depth of understanding of what you know through teaching and equipping other people. Not only that, the Bible says directly that if you refresh someone else, you too will be refreshed. So if you want to feel that refreshing, how can you pour into someone in the capacity, in the biblical capacity, not lack of boundary, none of that stuff, but the biblical capacity of refreshing others that comes with a promise of you being refreshed. Just like, giving. God says the only thing, test me in this, like pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And so for me, the way I saw this was very like tough, man. Like I remember I got into business, got into network marketing, made enough money that year. I thought I was going to be retired. The company ended up doing something where they took a turn. I could have changed companies, but instead I was like, I want to start my own company. I don't want someone to do that to me again, basically is what happened. And whether it's right or wrong, like my best friend and all my greatest, like my business partner, my best friend, a lot of my best friends came from that specific company. So it's pretty insane. Like that's what got me started. And so I look back at that, and I had invested in like a John C. Maxwell program. I was going to events every quarter. I was going to all the company events. So I was like investing in what everyone told me, invest, invest, invest. And then I failed. Went from a townhome in San Diego, 20 years old, 21 years old, BMW, brand new, to moving into a 400 square foot apartment with my wife with no AC in inland San Diego. So this summer was about 105, bro. Like I lived there all this summer. And we're sitting there. I was getting my carpet cleaning, like fans that dry the carpets, and creating such a tornado, bro, that papers were like flying in my house because I had no AC. Like it was terrible. Like I had so many flies in my house. I lived right next to the dumpster. Every time someone would get mail from the whole complex, it was outside of my bedroom window, and the blinds were so thin that you could see my wife and I sleeping. And it was so annoying, bro, because I could see that they're literally looking into my room, into my bed. And I remember sitting there and I was like, anyone I pay is winning and I'm not. Like it got to the point where if I went to a networking event and they had paid parking, there was no way. I was like you guys are going to get my money. I'm like, forget that. So I get invited to a free event and I get to this hotel. It's $35 for parking. I go, not again. Drop my wife off. I actually embarrassingly went and hit a bucket of golf balls because I thought that's only $12. So I'm technically saving money. I'm doing something fun. And the decisions that I was making was shaping my life. Tony Robbins says, it's in the moment of decision that your destiny is shaped. I thought it's better that I save $20, hit a bucket of balls, than park my car and invest in the relationships and the knowledge base that was in that room. And I'm sitting there dumping my carpet cleaning van one day. And it's when our problems and the pain of today outweighs the pain of what it takes to change is when we normally change. Also Tony Robbins, which is crazy because I don't listen to a ton of his stuff, but for some reason he's rolling off the tongue today. So thanks, Tony. My pain, I had gone to this place where I was cleaning carpets, failed my business, I was making $19K the first year, $21K the next. Failing. Lost all my dreams. I didn't even know how to be an entrepreneur anymore. Didn't even know what that looked like. I was a total poser. I could talk big game, but I totally wasn't. And my Navy SEAL mentor really helped through this. He called me. I talked big game with him, and he said, Nicholas, I know you can talk big game, but you haven't changed since I saw you last. He went on deployment, came back and said, you haven't changed since the last time I saw you. It just crushed me, man. So through these series of events, I sit there, I'm dumping my carpet cleaning van knowing I'm going to be just like my dad. Nothing wrong with my father set a great foundation for me, but man, I was just like, I'm going to be cleaning carpets in 50 freaking years. And that pain of knowing that what I was doing, I was paying up $100 of credit card debt every month. $100. My wife goes to an event. My wife is like wanting to change her, like she wants to grow. And I was like feeling the pain of providing. And there was a one-day mastermind event, or it was one mastermind event, multiple day, for $5,000. It's like drop into this one event. My wife's at that event. She's like, I want to buy it. They wouldn't let her buy it because I was so broke. Like imagine being so broke that the salesperson won't let you buy it. That's where I was at. It would have taken me 50 months to pay off this debt. 50. And I was living off $37.50 for food each between my wife and I. So we both had $37.50 a week, and a $25 a week eating out budget split between the two of us. Like $12.50 a week to go to date night. So this is like Chipotle without guac and without any extra meat. And you can't order it. That's for sure. This is bad. And just preface, like we were happy. We were just unsatisfied with our God-given potential. But we were happy because we knew God. Like we knew he had a purpose for our life. But I knew I was not in alignment with it. And man, it just got to the point where we swiped our credit card. And it's crazy because that was really dumb, but it was so smart. And that changed my life forever. And I've continued to invest in those core areas. Man, I probably invest about $80,000 a year right now in food to connect with people. Like, that's how like big I am in this. Like building my brotherhood, building my advisor flywheel, and also who are the people that I'm serving. And that could be through your company, but also other people. Who are people that you can serve that you get no benefit from? And finding those key people that you can pour into. Because again, when you teach, you get to learn twice. And that's a benefit to you as well. And when you refresh others, you'll be refreshed. Man, that changed my life. I remember going to that event, just so people know, I invested and nothing changed. I was so embarrassed. I was a carpet cleaner, didn't want to show up on the calls because I had a carpet cleaning shirt, was going to refund the $5,000 because all my friends told me to. Showed up to that event, $5,000, left there, had people that believed in me, found new business plans that I could implement, left just the transformation of being there. We did like 20-something thousand that next month. Then I had to call my dad and tell him I quit. And then went off on our own. We've never been not profitable since then. 2016, never been not profitable since then. It was 14 months until we did over $100K in a month. So when I left there, took 14 months to have our first $100,000 collected month. It was like $170K from $20K a year to $170K in a month, 14 months apart. And it would have never happened if I didn't go to that mastermind, get around those mentors. Notice it came with both mentors, people to run with, and of course there's still people in there that I could pour into. And so that's where I found like all of it. And now, yeah, I have phenomenal mentors. I'm able to invest more freely. I'm able to invest in my own team, but it all starts with that. And notice it was hard because I had already done it and failed. But just because you did it and failed doesn't mean the whole thing's terrible. It just means like, stay true to what it is. Grant Cardone got asked one time, if you were broke, you keep investing in yourself, but you're still broke. When do you just like stop investing in yourself and just work? And he was like, I wouldn't. I would just continue to invest in myself and work. I wouldn't like stop. And I just thought that was so interesting. It's like, huh, like, yeah, I guess that's right. It's like continue to figure out what you can do. Because generally what I would say is that if you have a big vision and you're so afraid to invest in it, especially in yourself, because the top two investments that you're going to make with money, talk about stocks, Tesla, Bitcoin, etc., is going to be you and then your own business. Those are number 1 and 2. Notice you are before your own business because you're the owner of your business. So if you are so afraid, you have such a big vision and you're so confident in it and you know you're going to make it, and then Brandon comes and says, hey, it's 50 grand, 5 grand, 100 grand, whatever it is to work with us. And it's like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. Like investing in yourself, investing in your own business. I'm like, is it really that you can't do it? Or is it actually just showing that you're not confident in yourself, your capabilities, what you think you could do, or your own vision? And oftentimes I think it's more of that, because people will talk big game just as I did. But when it actually came to investing, it's like, uh-oh, I actually don't know if I invest in this program. I don't know if I'll actually implement it. I don't know if I'll actually get the transformation. I don't know if I'll do it. So maybe that's a reality check that people have to go through and allow that to be like, well, okay, maybe I do need to make this investment and start believing in myself.
Yeah, I agree, man. And that's exactly what I teach our people. You know, you listen to people who have, there's so many people out there who have opinions, but no results to back up their opinions. And they're going to come at them and they're going to tell them it's not going to work. And you need to return the money, return the product because it's not going to work for you. Or you can go to the event, find people who have the results that you want, and you can start doing what they do. Do what they do, have what they have, right? So
Success leaves clues, man. Success leaves clues. Everyone has an opinion. It's called their 2 cents. And often it's only worth 2 cents. That's why it's smart to get brothers and advisors around you so you can listen to them, because the world will always give you their 2 cents. And if you don't have people that are close to you, that know your vision, that know who you are to pour into, because you should have people that say you suck. Hey, man, you're not that good at this. You should have that. But if you don't create it, you're going to have to listen to the world, giving you opinions based on a 10-second interaction with you. And that is no fun. You look at Jesus. What happened? This is so convicting, bro. What happened when Jesus needed money? The disciples, the tax collector comes and the disciples are like, hey, we don't have enough money to pay for taxes. And you know what he says? Let's go fishing. These dudes fished for a living. They were probably like, hey, Jesus, I know you are a carpenter, but I don't think you quite understand. We had fished all night when you came and we caught nothing. To make this much money fishing, it takes this long. Like they must have had this conversation with him. And he takes the very thing that they had done as their occupation and trolled on them by going and fishing and catching one fish and pulling out a gold coin out of its mouth and overpaid, tipped the tax collector. And I started thinking, is this really how God looks at how hilarious it is when we're thinking about, I need to make an investment. Oh, I don't know if I can make it happen. Let me pray real quick. I'm like, I don't know. Jesus just went and fished and like pulled a gold coin out of the mouth of a fish. He didn't create a table and sell it and be like, hey guys, I've been a carpenter for a long time. Let's flip some furniture here. No, he took their occupation and made a complete meme out of it. And I believe sometimes we have to check ourselves, like, especially as a man of faith, I'm like, I need to check myself. Like, there's times where I'm like, I'm stingy. I'm feeling the lack. I'm feeling all this stuff. I'm like, okay, I got to remember again, like the wealth of heaven, God is in control of all wealth, but also the wealth of heaven's in wisdom. And I look at that and I'm like, wow, sometimes I need to broaden my vision, because Jesus probably would have been like, oh, you want to invest in that program that's going to help you? Yeah, no big deal. Like I went fishing and pulled a coin out of someone's mouth, like out of a fish's mouth. That's just so gnarly to me, man. And that's like where I stretch myself.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. I've never heard that perspective from it. So that's great.
Never.
So
this is from talking to myself, you know. I'm like, man, gotta stop being a baby. Like, he pulled the coin out of the mouth. Like, can't be so afraid.
Right. So tell everybody where can they find you? You know, what podcasts are you on? What's your YouTube channel? And just all of that. Website.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So yeah, if they're a man that's a Christian that runs a business, I have the King's Brotherhood that's on Facebook. You can go check that out. Very, very powerful, very fun. Now, outside of that, I also set aside always when I come on a show like this, my Instagram is Instagram.com/Nicholas Bayerle. And there, if you send me a DM, I actually don't want any of your information, don't want your credit card, don't want anything. I would love to send you a physical copy of my book. And again, this will just be until I run out of the handful that I have here. I would love to ship them out. So I just need the address and say what's up. And I would love to just ship it out to you for free. I'll pay for the shipping. I'll pay for the book. Would love to be able to do that to bless people. I run a business, so I don't have to make money from books, which is amazing. And then the last thing is I created a show called God's Business. And this is really incorporating as I was building a business, I knew there was business people that didn't live the lifestyle that I wanted. And there was Christians that didn't know how to build a business and didn't relate to me at all. I'm showcasing and bringing in people that are biblically building their business in a way where you're building up your core values and your spiritual side of your life while getting the actual business tactics of exactly how you grow and scale a business. And so to me, getting these two things together. So if that's an important thing to you, maybe you're already investing to scale your business and you're listening to podcasts, but you're like, man, I wish they were more aligned with who I am and what I want out of life. And I want to spend time with my family, and I want to have a family, and I want to be married, and I don't want to have sex with girls on the road. If that's not what you want to do, or I don't want to travel away from my family. Well, that's more so what we're about. Or maybe you listen to spiritual podcasts and you're like, I really want to learn how to build a business as well, but I don't want to neglect this area of my life. We've mashed it together into a show called God's Business, which is on my YouTube channel, Nicholas Bayerle, and then on iTunes and every other podcast platform. It's just God's Business.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, thanks for your time today. I know it's very valuable. I know, you could be doing a lot of other things today, but you're on here pouring value into our community. It's much appreciated. And I'm really excited to get this out to everybody so they can, just learn from the wealth of knowledge that you have, man. So again, thanks for being on.
Thank you.
All right, brother.